driver's test, do you want them on the road with you? Nope. Some people act like they haven't passed the driver's test. That's another story. I went to go get an oil change the other day at Valvoline. It was the best experience ever. I was in and out of there like 15 minutes. I'm like, how is that possible? It's because I got there like 15 minutes prior to closing. But anyway, it's just amazing because everything they do is on the computer, right? They had to pass the test. I hope they do what they're supposed to do to my car correctly, because I don't want to be driving my car if they didn't do what they were supposed to do correctly. I have precious cargo in my car. A surgeon, a truck driver, a pilot, my goodness, yes. All of these different people had to pass a test. So does the test matter? Yes, it does. Stop lying to yourself saying it doesn't matter. It does. All of us would not be in this room. The teacher of the year at R. Brown McAllister Elementary School. I love this picture of graduation up here, and here's a picture of some of our TFs. They all had to pass a test to do what they do. It's a part of life. It's not the sole thing of life, but it is a measure of what we do. And these are my sweet girls, the most important people in my life. Does it matter? Yep, because I'm thinking already about their future, right? I was so sad the other day counting up the number of summers that I get to have with them before they go off to college. So does it matter? Yeah. Or maybe not college, whatever they decide to do. They're going to have to pass a test. But it doesn't encompass who they are. So, I don't know what's wrong with our computer this morning. Some big ideas. That one's perfect. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you. Culture of continuous improvement, goal setting and data tracking, core instruction, peer support, and social emotional behavior and academics. Oh. Next. Thank you. So when you think about a culture of continuous improvement, I love being in North Carolina. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where there are no trees. It's brown, and there's a whole bunch of tumbleweeds and dust storms. So, like you're driving and all of a sudden you can't see, it's because there's a dust storm, because the wind is just blowing and it's just dusty, like there would be a rainstorm here. I did not own an umbrella until I came to Greensboro, North Carolina, my first day of orientation. And what does it do in North Carolina for hours at a time? Rain. Never experienced hours of rain at a time, but the result of that rain, beautiful, beautiful trees, right? When you have a tree, it blossoms, it blooms, you take care of it, you prune it back. It does all of those things, right? That means there's growth there. It's growing. So no matter how beautiful it is, it always can get better. Now, when it gets to this point, what happens? I heard somebody say it's dangerous, right? There's a storm in North Carolina and you have one of these in your backyard and lightning hit, or you are in trouble because it's going to fall on your house. I have one in my backyard I need to take out. So this idea of continuous improvement is not far off, right? We always have to be growing and we have to be learning, and you never get it 100% right, because as Chris O'Brien said earlier this week, the minute that you achieve one goal with kids, then you know there's something else you need to start working on. It's the same thing in your schools. The minute you figure something out with your culture or with your PBIS, there's the next thing that you've got to figure out. Next. Goals. I was in a school this year. I always take pictures when I was in school, and I can't remember where this is. But I thought this was the most wonderful thing. It was outside or inside of a classroom, and there were younger kids, obviously. But it says a goal not written down is only a wish. So today, we are going to be focusing on writing your goals, collecting all of the data, everything that you've learned. Instead of wishing these things would happen, write it down and make it a measurable goal. Next. Define core. Turn and talk about these two words, guaranteed and viable. What does that mean? Let's start with guaranteed. What do you think about when you think about guaranteed? Insured? Promised? It's gonna happen? Non-negotiable? For everyone? What about viable? It works. Transferable.
Adaptable.
Adaptable, research-based. We've got to make sure that our core is all of those things. Why? Core's for who? Everyone, right? It's for everyone. And it's not just for our students. A lot of times we talk about multi-tiered systems of support and we think, oh, it's just for kids. No, we do that as adults, right? We provide different layers of support for the adults in your building who need it, because the goal is that we are going to be successful. So you need to think about that around curriculum, instruction, environment, and also your data evaluation. So this is a picture I took when I was out at Winkler. My child's going there next year, and I was actually there for a parent night, and I was like, oh, that's a great picture, I'm going to take a picture of that. So I love this picture because it talks about this pyramid that we've seen so many different times. But it's cores for everybody, and then folks that are still struggling, we have to give them core plus, and if they're still struggling, we have to give them core plus plus. Can't yank the rug out from under them, right? So a lot of times we get so caught up in providing these interventions for kiddos in academics and behavior and social emotional, but we're not thinking about their ability to transfer it back to core, right? They have to have core, and then on top of that, something else. If you think about your schedule, it's the same thing. You can't pull kids out of core instruction to give them an intervention. So think about it. Your most fragile learners, they're in the classroom teacher receiving explicit instruction, but they need an intervention for fluency. So we pull them out, give them fluency, and usually they come back in 15 minutes before class is over. What are they doing? What am I supposed to do? And then the worst thing is, and they get a homework assignment that's based on core. Is that child going to be successful? We've just set him up for failure. So we want to be really intentional about the supports that we're putting in place for students. So social emotional learning is something that we don't talk a lot about sometimes, because it's kind of new, and usually people are like, SEL, what is, like, I don't even know what that is. I'm really excited that in Cabarrus County Schools we have a district team that meets once a month. It's our district MTSS team. And our student services team's right in there with us. So student services right now, Amy Lauder, Amy Jewell, John Bassalise, and Sue Burns are working really hard on developing a social emotional curriculum for our district. So what are we going to do for all students? So if you just Google social emotional learning, there's lots of different things that come up. This is just something that I pulled off of the website. But this basically hits those things that kids have to know how to be able to do to be successful in the real world. Remember going back to shaking those kids' hands? Did we teach kids about self-awareness and social awareness, self-management, relationships, and responsible decision-making? I hope so, because guess what? They're going to be taking care of us. And if we don't teach them these things, we can't just believe that they're going to come to us already knowing those things. You have to explicitly teach these things and put them in situations that are controlled so we can teach these things before they go out and do it on their own. So if we don't teach them these things, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Behavior, of course, another thing that we have to explicitly teach. So if we're here at Northwest this week, thank you so much for hosting us. As you go around their building, they have awesome PBIS things that are up around the school so you know exactly what the expectations are. My favorite one is the dress code picture. right? It's my favorite. It's visual, you look at it. Can I do that? No. Can I do this? Yep. Can I do this? Nope. Can I do this? Yes, it's very clear, it's very explicit. And then they also had their expectations posted in the different areas. And then this picture, I think, was at R. Brown. Is Tara in here this morning, Tara? That's at your school, right? Yeah, so it's at R. Brown, where they are recognizing students who have, that their behavior is outstanding. So, interestingly enough, I don't know if this is true, but he says, research says, so I'm just going to say it because I heard it at a conference, but research says that if you put students' pictures up and associate it with something positive, but is that right, Dr. Archer?
I'm sure research says.
Research says. It boosts their self-confidence, how they feel about themselves. Oh, I can do this. Somebody recognizes me. I mean, think about it. Why do you think in our culture now we spend so much time taking selfies, right? We're taking selfies and posting it because we want other people to see us and the achievements that we have. So if you can do that in a school setting and allow students to think positive things about them, you're going to get huge gains in your schools. So I think this is a really interesting quote, and one of the coolest things that I had the opportunity to do was to drive Rick and Becky DeFore around when I was in Cabarrus in my previous role. But I think it's just an interesting quote, and you look at it and you're like, how can that possibly be true? But the fundamental purpose of school is learning, not teaching. What does that mean? What does that mean? But isn't that like an oxymoron? And why we spend so much time planning and PLCing and like why have we been here all this week? Dr. Archer has the answer. I'm not going to repeat it because somebody else needs to be. Good. How well you teach is how well they learn. Students being in the content. What did we do yesterday, Dr. Archer? In the text, not out of the text. I was listening. I was engaged. I learned yesterday. So it's not just about like, so many times we put so much effort into, oh my gosh, you teach. And I know as a principal and evaluator, I've gone in, I'm like, gosh, she was teaching her butt off. She was just, it was awesome. But did the kids learn what they were supposed to learn? Do we have a systematic way that we're checking to make sure that they learned what they were supposed to learn? Or worse yet, she was teaching her butt off, but she wasn't teaching the standards. Right? So it's about learning. So in academics, we have got to focus on learning. We've got to focus on standards, teaching to mastery learning. These are all things that we're really going to be digging into this year. Explicit instruction and discovery learning. We're going to be doing a lot of work around our grading practices. Did you all know that as part of the North Carolina Educator Code of Ethics, that's a part of the North Carolina Educator Evaluation System that we sign off on every year, says that when we grade and assign students, it's based on learning. Do you know that? That's what it says. That's what we agree to. That's what we're supposed to do. It's in general statutes. So we are assigning our grading based on what they learn, not based on, you didn't put your name on the left side and it was on the right and it's turned in a certain way. Like our grading is supposed to be on their learning. Are all those other things important? Yeah, it kind of goes back to that social emotional, right? How are kids responsible if they don't turn in their work? We have to teach that. So I'm not saying that all of that goes out of the window, but what I am saying is that your grading, when a student is in 7th grade math, Their grade is supposed to reflect how they learn the standards associated with 7th grade math, not arbitrary things that we put on students and say that they have to do for us. Does that make sense? So you've got to just think about that and grapple with that. So as leaders in your schools, principals have selected kids to be here today, you've got to think about how you're going to grapple with that. How are you going to make that work? How are you going to teach kids to be responsible and to turn their work on time and do what they need to do so when we shake their hands, we know we're sending them out to the real world with all the things they're supposed to do. But at the same time, we are following our code of ethics and making sure that our grading practices are associated with learning. And then, of course, assessment's going to be huge in our district. So I love this next one where it talks about the art and science of teaching and learning. There's definitely a mix, right? There's an art, it's beautiful. I get so excited about it when I think about teaching and learning. There's also a very specific science to it. So we need to make sure that we have a beautiful mix and meld of the two. So one of the things that that's new to Cabarrus County this year that I'm super excited about is teaching and learning teams. So principals in the room know all about this. They've already selected their teams. But we're excited about this because it is something that we're doing that is systematic in Cabarrus County schools to make sure what professional development are we providing for all. Remember I talked about MTSS is not just about students? We're modeling this. So TLTs is what we are doing for all. It's a level of support that's focused on collective leadership, capacity building. One of the things that, this is research-based, research tells us is that principals have to lead their schools, right? They are so critically important. But principals cannot do everything on their own. They have to be able to effectively build capacity with the people that they work with to carry out the work. So we can't bring principals into a room and say, guys, we want you to focus on critical thinking and explicit instruction and discovery instruction, and this is how you do it, and blah, 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 blah. And then, by the way, you got to hire, blah, 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 blah. By the way, you got to make sure your building is clean, blah, blah, blah. By the way, you need to make sure you do all your evaluations and deal with the mad parent phone calls and the OCR complaint, and the IEP meetings you need to sit in for 3.5 hours. Like, they cannot do it all. So we are working to make sure that we're building a strong team where the principal, next slide, has to be the core leader of that TLT team, and they bring 3 other people along with them. So 6 times during the year, they'll come together, we will work with them, provide professional development. In the afternoon, they'll have team planning time with the idea that this is just a small piece of their larger team, and that small piece of their team will go back and share that with their greater team. And we really believe that this will be really important in affecting change in our district. This team will stay together the entire year. We will focus on critical thinking. Next slide. Critical thinking, checking for understanding, digital age teaching and learning, and improve student outcomes, because again, it's about students learning. So embedded in that, we will be focused on taking a look at results from our new assessment system that I'm really excited about. Next slide. So this is a progression. We've thought about this. It's just not like a fly-by-the-wind thing. It's something that we're going to do for the next 3 years. And again, we're really excited about it. This is my video.
Mastery Connect helps teachers identify student levels of understanding so you can do 2 things. Target interventions to improve student outcomes, and inform instruction to improve your own teaching. Now everything revolves around the Mastery Tracker, where you can clearly see which standards you need to reteach and which students are in need of remediation. Mastery Connect makes formative assessment easy and efficient. Teachers can quickly get student data into the tracker. Let's take a look at 4 ways to do this. Use your own observations to determine student mastery of any standard and enter raw scores into the tracker. Quickly score multiple choice bubble sheets using any webcam or document camera. Now, if you're looking for an alternative to multiple choice tests, upload your own rubric and determine mastery standards using any performance-based assessment, from music and PE performance to constructive response answers in science and English. Or administer an assessment online with students answering technology-enhanced questions through our item banks. No matter which assessment type you choose, it's simple to get formative assessment data into Mastery Connect. From here, you can begin doing the important work of targeting students for intervention or enrichment based on that data. You can sort students by mastery for any standard. The item analysis report allows you to identify specific questions the students are struggling with. And the teacher collaborative report helps teachers work together around common formative data. Now, it's also important to engage students and parents in the mastery-based discussion. Students and parents can log into their own Mastery Connect account to view individualized mastery data. Students can even access resources and take assessments online. Administrators can see the data at the district, school, grade, teacher, and even individual student level. They can also see mastery data for any individual assessment across a school or district in order to identify groups of students for targeted intervention. With curriculum maps, administrators or content teams can structure standards into units, create common formative assessments, and pin standards line resources into one curriculum map for any subject and grade level. These maps automatically convert into trackers complete with structured units of content, common assessments, and standards line resources. Now, all of this comes back to the Mastery Tracker. This is where you identify what your students know and what they don't know. Then you can target them for meaningful interventions and ultimately improve student outcomes.
So again, this is something that's new for Ferris County Schools when I, what that one at? Am I not on? You guys can hear me though, can't you? When I first came into Ferris County, one of the first things that was said to me before I even was officially here was, DE is going away. I'm like, what do you mean DE is going away? Like, we use Discovery Education, it's awesome, instructionally. They're like, no, you don't understand. DE, our benchmark is going away, and we need a new one. It's like, oh, okay, got it. So we immediately started working on the process, and we landed here with Mastery Connect and TE21. So there you just saw a brief video about the different ways that teachers can use that checking for understanding based on standards to see if students really are learning, right? So we're doing all this fabulous teaching with Ferris County students. I mean, it is good stuff. We need to make sure that students are learning. The really cool thing about this tool is that teachers do their own little assessments that they normally do, like their exit tickets, all of that stuff, but it's housed in that beautiful tracker. So it's not like it was when I was teaching. When I was teaching, when I was in the first grade classroom, for example, I pulled small groups of students. I would do guided reading. I had my little sticky notes with anecdotal notes, and I had like a notebook where I checked off their reading behaviors. And then at the end of the week, I would do a really quick running record, and then analyze their MSB, and then regroup them, and all of those different things. But guess what? I took all of that stuff home over the weekend. I sat in front of the TV and watched my favorite soap opera, Young and the Restless, with all the stuff piled up, and then on my dining room table, moved it all around, and then went back to work on Monday to redo that. The cool thing now is we have the technology and the pieces in place in this tool that it's already in that tracker for you. It's already aligned to standards. It groups students, it does all of those wonderful things that you saw. Then the really cool thing is that benchmark assessment, the old DE, the benchmark assessment will come along as an independent assessment and bloop, drop in your tracker. And guess what you get to see? God, all of these kids that were doing really, like they were struggling. But the benchmark says they're doing pretty good on these standards. Well, that independent benchmark is like, I think I look at it like going to like your Weight Watchers check, right? to see exactly like what their scale says that you're doing. You know, your scale at home might be a little, but their scale is typically accurate because that's a scale that like gets you like your prizes and all that stuff, right? So that's the same thing. So the TE21 has 95% validity. That thing, it's predictable. And when you take a look at that, based on what you've been doing, the assessments that you've been doing in your classroom, it just realigns you, right? So it reminds me of when I was in college and went with some friends to Florida, and it was late at night, and we were coming back to North Carolina, and I was tired, and I'm driving, and I'm like, it's taking us a really long time to get back to North Carolina, and my friends wake up like, where are we? I don't know. I had driven like 2.5 hours completely out of the way. Well, now that doesn't happen, right? Because Siri is going to say, recalculating, recalculating. So before you get way too far off in your instruction, you have an opportunity to recalculate your instruction and navigate and get to where we know students need to get. So all this week, all this information, you might feel like this. Right? I share this with Lynn Reimer. She's like, how's it going? And I thought, this is how I'm feeling right now. Like, my mind is blown and there's purple smoke coming out. But all of these things, this week has been designed for you. That even though this is how you're feeling, we want you to go back to this. The now what, right? You sat through 4 days, you planned with your teams, you have all this stuff. Now what? What we want you to do is go back to these 6 critical components of MTSS. These different things. Take a look at your data sources. Figure out what you're doing well and continue to tweak that. Figure out where you need to really focus on improving and make some changes. If I'm a principal here with my team, I'm thinking, what do I really need to work on? And then I'm looking for a strategy. I'm thinking, is explicit instruction my concern? Well, this is who I'm talking to, right? Like, I need you to help me out here. If the problem is with behaviors are out of control at my school, then I'm finding where is that critical piece of information that I found out this week? What are the resources that I have? I'm really going to connect with them and dig in and make some huge changes in my school for success. And of course, focus, right? You can't do it all. Somebody said less is more. Is less more? Yes. You cannot do it all. You cannot. We work super hard in this district, super, super hard. And somebody always says, like, we don't need to work harder. We need to work smarter, right? We need to get focused. We need to get targeted. We need to figure out what it is we need to focus on. So you all know this story, right? About the starfish, about the little boy who hit the starfish and throwing them back in the water. And an old man comes up and says, what are you doing? I'm collecting these I'm trying to save these starfish. And he says, look at this beach. You know how many starfish are out here? There's no way that you're going to save all of them. And the boy says, well, it matters to this one. So what I want you to walk away knowing is that what you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what type of difference that you want to make. And we all have a responsibility to make a difference in the lives of the students that we see every single day. So I want my girls, Madison and Morgan, and all 32,000 of the kiddos that are going to come to us in just a few short weeks. When that bus driver pulls up, I don't want that bus driver that just does what they're supposed to do, right? Like follows the rules and doesn't cut people off and cause accidents and stuff. Like, I want them to do that, right? But I also want them, when the bus doors open, to say, good morning, I'm so excited to see you this morning, have a seat. I want my girls, when they go into class, to do what Miss Hall did this year, which was the most amazing thing. Like I said, we transitioned. In my previous district, it was small. Parents could choose their teacher. So as a planner, I had picked my kids' teachers for the rest of their career, right? That's my mom. So when we made the decision to make a career change and move to Concord, because this is where our life was anyway, took my child to Weddington Hills. Well, Miss Dolan didn't ask me who I wanted Madison and Morgan's teacher to be. And I didn't tell her, because I didn't know, and I didn't like that. We don't do that here. The coolest thing on open house, teacher walks up, Miss Hall, you must be Morgan. Thinking, wow, she knew there was a new assistant superintendent in town, and like I thought it was all about me, right? And so like she figured out like who I was, and she knew it was Morgan, like Chastity must have told her. 5 seconds later, hi, you must be Michael. Thinking, how does this lady know this? She had to have studied the faces of the kids in the cumulative folder, so when the kids walked in the class, she knew their name. I thought, wow, I couldn't have got a more wonderful teacher. Someone who knew my kid's name and made her feel special the second that she walked in the door. Then I met with her a couple of weeks later, and she said, Morgan backslid on her TRC, like she was nowhere where she was at the end of the year. I'm like, I know, it's one of those bad educator parents. We didn't do nothing this summer. I was tired, we were packing moot like we didn't do anything. She's like, well, I'm really concerned. I'm like, yeah, I know, I am too. Set goals, and my little baby moved from way back here to way above where she was supposed to be. But it started when she walked in that door and said, hi, you must be Morgan. That is what we want to create for all 32,000 students who are coming to here. And I'll end with this one. Malcolm Gladwell, one of my favorite writers on leadership. He says that success is a function of persistence and doggedness and the willingness to work hard for 22 minutes to make sense of something that most people would give up on after 30 seconds. That is what we want Cabarrus County Schools to be, and that's what Cabarrus County Schools deserves. All right, we are going to move into announcements for today. Today is the last day, and we are so excited that you have been persistent in making sure that you're working with your school teams. Several of you principals signed up